Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. Welcome in to the Bro 4 Squad podcast, where we are just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. I'm your host, the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. Thank you so much for checking out our show. This is episode 230, the 2024 Spooktacular. We just lost all our
scare me like that.
I know, I scared the shit out of them, and they all just stopped listening. So for the one guy left, thank you. Before we get started with the movie discussion, we got to go around and meet my fellow horror hound, our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli. Now, Cycli, as a lawyer, in the town of Haddonfield, Illinois, where Michael Myers does most of his dirty work, I mean, at this point, should murder just be legal?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it kind of is. Have you seen the police force there?
It's true.
Like, they're not stopping shit. Did you see how much the mob rule there in the most recent trilogy?
There's a lot of groupthink happening. Yeah, there is.
The cops are letting it happen. They're watching it.
At this point, when someone commits a murder, they're like, "Hey, come on!"
Even the people in the purge are like, "Calm down."
Yeah, you're doing too much, as the kids would say. All right, well, here on the Bro 4 Squad, we start every episode off with the most important thing in any bro's life, and that is chest day. And as you could guess, it is Halloween season here in October. Cycli and I live and die for horror movies, so this is the time of year that we are most ecstatic for when it comes to the podcast, I would say. Cycli, for the chest day, no specific way that we're going to categorize these, but I think you and I, over the past few months, have been discussing the output of horror films in 2024, and I think two ways I would describe it. Number one, a lot of very, very solid entries, but nothing that has blown us away. But two, for me at least, I'm very surprised. Like, I was not expecting to like a lot of the horror fare that came out this year. At least there was nothing that was like really jumping off the page to me outside of The Strangers Chapter 1. But the list that you and I put together of ones that we've seen that have come out in 2024, just like solid hitter after solid hitter from what we've got in terms of horror and thrillers. What would you say?
Yeah, first of all, this is the most wonderful time of year, right? Like, the weather's changing, spooky season is in form. I mean, this is my favorite time to just rewatch some of our like favorite movies. But what's been so cool about 2024, and I think we talked about this on our movie 2024 movie preview, is we were anticipating this was going to be a big year for horror films when we saw the list of the films that were going to come out. And some of them that we've seen, and some of them we didn't even expect to be on that list. I think we looked at, like, in 2023, there were going to be a lot of comedies coming out. And this year has really revitalized horror movie. I mean, usually you get them in, like, February and then October. We have been consistently getting horror movies punched out every month so far. And yeah, some of them haven't lived up to our expectations, but some of them blew our expectations, and it's just been really fun and fresh to see.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't have anything to base this on except pulling it out of my ass. But I also feel like in terms of output, there has been, like you said, pretty much one or two horror movies every month that I've been looking forward to seeing. I don't know if it's always like that every year. I will say, with horror more than anything, like, it feels, I mean, they can't all come out in October. Obviously, that would just be a log jam, and studios' production schedules don't work that way. But horror movies come out all throughout the year, and it's a little bit funny to me because, like, we always joke, I think one of the Halloween movies in the new trilogy came out in, like, January or February, and we're like, why? But, I mean, I'm still going to watch it.
I think there's a couple movies that always did that. Like, am I crazy? I think some of the Screams have done that.
Yeah, Scream was a February release, I think, the last two.
And I don't know if it's because, relatively the movies are the lowest box office months are always, January, February, March, right. And they feel like they can. Putting a movie like Scream out there gets people in the theater. So I don't know if that's some motivation, but
with little competition too, which is something studios look for. All right, so I have my list actually in no particular order. So I think you've seen most of these. So I'll just start off with one that got a lot of hype. I mean, it was one that was like the internet darling for a little while. And then I think as more people went to go see it, it kind of leveled out. And then maybe there was even a little bit of vitriol online because people were like, why the fuck did everyone hype that movie up so much? And that was Longlegs. Do you remember your thoughts on the Nicolas Cage?
Funny enough,
for horror,
I actually just was having a conversation about that movie this past weekend at the bars with some friends. And one thing I think I said on our review, and that I kind of regret, is I haven't gotten a chance to rewatch it, because
Yeah.
I genuinely did feel, and I said this on our review, that the film was well produced, it was well acted, as well written. Um, it just lost me. I felt like it was a bait and switch and not a twist. Um, the way it kind of felt like it cheapened the ending with it being supernatural. And spoilers, but honestly, if you're at this point, I feel like you've seen Longlegs.
Yeah, I'll just put in the description spoilers for all
Yeah.
these movies.
Longlegs billed itself out to be, the reviews were coming out to be a Silence of the Silence of the Lambs esque, serial killer movie, and it cheapened the detective. It cheapened the film itself to me as a supernatural film. It gave the excuse the detective was only good at what she did because she had a paranormal connection.
It's like a Mary Sue type.
Yeah. And it felt like, again, it just cheapened it. But I was, like I said, debating it. But I am also not in the majority. I think it was very 50-50 on this film. We were having a discussion, and someone was saying, like, they loved it. They loved the twist. They found it, like, it scared them more with having the devil be involved. And I've watched all these videos from the movie, how they had the devil's like in almost in every scene. It's like an Easter egg. And that's one of the reasons I kind of want to go back and watch it. Like, there's a lot I missed, but now that I don't have those expectations, I did. But at the same time, there was other people at the bar who felt the same way I did, and saying, like, it just took away the horror that had been built up in the film to me. So, not saying I'm right or wrong. It's just bill it differently, and I think I'll enjoy it more. What about you?
Yeah, I think I said on the review too, Micah Monroe's performance, I just didn't get it. I don't know what she was being directed to do. I understand her character has like trauma and a lot of stuff stemming from like her childhood, but her whole like essentially being like a what's the word? She was basically like socially neutered. Like she didn't understand any social cues. I didn't really understand what she was trying to do there. And then the supernatural element, this is just kind of in general, but I feel like inherently when something is supernatural, and I hate for people out there to be like, well, I believe in supernatural horror, like that's awesome, but something is more scary to me if I feel like it's plausible, like it could actually happen. That's why I think home invasion movies are the scariest type of films. So when you take a serial killer film and the premise of it, and then you inject inherently like the devil, to me that just becomes a little bit less scary. Now I think it was executed well. It looked really good, and that interrogation scene at the end is one of the creepiest scenes of the year for me. But overall, it was a good horror movie for me. But I just didn't see the hype where people were like, it just felt really hyperbolic. Some of the things people were saying about this movie, I was like, all right, relax.
Sometimes I feel like this movie was cursed with, again, you have marketing departments who are not actually involved in production.
Yeah.
And there's no oversight, and they can bill a movie as they want. And sometimes it's not on the director, it's not on the movie creators and the writers that get to involve in that. So I'm not against supernatural. I love a lot of supernatural stuff. I'll talk about some supernatural here in a little bit. Like, uh, The Ring was always one of my favorite scary movies. Like, I just don't think people act like it's you take away from the film if they had told us it was supernatural from the beginning, and I absolutely disagree with that. There's plenty of supernatural films that I know going in is supernatural, and I love it and found scary. It's like,
Yeah.
why do I not need it? Like, if I go into a war movie and I'm like, they're not going to hide that it's a war movie. It's not going to hide that there's an asteroid in a end of world movie. Like, I just don't think we need to like act like that was a twist, because there's a big difference between a twist ending and just lying about what you are.
Well, the way I look at these movies, and some people might be like, well, you just have the wrong mindset. And maybe that's right. But the entire time, and you might be the same way, I'm hoping in my head, like, please don't be supernatural. Please be something real and like somewhat feasible. That will scare me. And then when they go there, it just kind of feels like a cheap way out. Because you can really explain away anything that happens plot wise.
Of course,
If you
Deus
just say,
Machina. The writers, they're God. They can do whatever they want.
yeah, they're omniscient. They're impenetrable. It's great. It's like my ex-wife. She's never fucking wrong, you know?
Well, she's not. As my client, she's great. It's like, I know this is a weird comparison, but the live action Mulan
Yeah.
that came out a few years ago, that kind of makes me think of Longlegs in the sense that, like, they acted like when they were doing the live action, they were taking away some of the magic from. They said they want to make it more realistic, and then all of a sudden you watch this movie and it has a witch in it, and
But no
Mulan's,
Mushu. That was
but
crossing.
no
the line.
Mushu. But what killed me about that movie is Mulan was no longer amazing because she was a brave, strong girl. No, she all of a sudden had magical powers that she didn't know about, and that made her who she was. And I'm like, how is that the movie you made? Mulan is an inspirational character because she was real and raw and like had family honor. And that was Longlegs to me in a way. Like, why did you take away what made this detective great by giving her supernatural senses? And that's the only reason why she was a good detective, not because she was actually a smart person.
And those people listening out there, good luck finding another podcast that can compare Longlegs to Mulan.
They're essentially the same movie.
Because you can't, I mean, yeah, paint by numbers, basically.
The whole time I'm watching Longlegs, I'm like, is anyone else getting Mulan?
I'm getting heavy Mulan vibes here, fellas. I know you are too. All right. Anything else on that? Or you want to move on to the next one?
No, I will say I am excited about rewatching it. I do feel like I actually might enjoy it more on my second watch.
Yeah. Or at least I'll be less annoyed by the third act, quote unquote, reveal. Another one I watched, I won't talk about this too long, was The Watchers, which is the Dakota Fanning movie with Georgina Campbell as well, who's from Barbarian, directed by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, Ishana Shyamalan. Also, just a real quick aside, I don't have Trap on my list. I don't know if you did. I just didn't really consider that one.
I contemplated putting it on the list, but I wouldn't call it. I would call that more thriller.
Yeah. So The Watchers, you didn't see it, right, Cycly? I know I kind of...
No, you convinced me not to. I'm not against watching it. Maybe eventually I'll get to it, but...
I might give it another poke at some point. For me, conceptually, it's really cool. Like the idea that this girl has her car break down in the middle of the woods. She finds this house where 3 other people are there who say basically the same thing has happened to them within the last couple weeks. The end of the movie, though, I won't spoil it if anyone hasn't seen it, but there is a lot asked of the audience to buy in to what is going on. And I think it was just a little too much for me to really be like, okay, yeah, I'm good with that. I do think it looks really good. A lot of suspense is really built, and the execution of the twist definitely feels like Ishana Shyamalan has some really good future projects up her sleeve. I just don't know if this was necessarily one of them, but I will definitely check out her future work.
Okay, so that's good to know, because I'm wondering, was it a Nepo baby type hire, or do you think she actually has some ability?
I think she does have some ability, and especially with this visually, like it looks to me like as good as M. Night Shyamalan's like later work. Some of his early stuff was not quite like visually up to par with some of his like more recent stuff, and this looked great. And it was scary at times and conceptually really cool. Just at the end, man, it really is asking you to, it's basically buy a bill of goods that's just too much for me to get behind. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, next one you and I both watched. I think we even did a review on it. The Strangers Chapter 1. And we've said so many times on the pod, The Strangers, the original one, is, I still think, the scariest movie I've ever seen. Definitely a theatrical experience, the most scary.
At least on the first watch, in the theater.
And I actually really liked The Strangers Pray at Night. I know that I'm probably the high man on that movie. Not a lot of people love it. So
I liked it too. I think I've said that on the pod. I didn't think it was as scary because basically you kind of know what's happening, but I think they did enough differently.
Yeah. And you and Banner actually reviewed that many years ago. So go check that out. But Strangers Chapter 1, Cycly, I guess the best way to describe my feelings would be middling results, but I'm excited or at least intrigued enough that I will definitely be there when the second one comes out. What did you think of The Strangers Chapter 1?
Yeah, it almost felt like I think we talked about it outside for the opening scene or two. It felt like almost an attempt at a shot-for-shot remake of the original. And here's me being my stupid, optimistic self, which I've hurt myself with these level of thinking time and time again, and I will continue to do so because I'm just a sucker. I am giving it the benefit of the doubt that the reason they did almost a shot-for-shot remake was to reintroduce the Strangers to a new generation. And now they're going to carry the momentum and change the story for the next 2 movies we're getting, right? Because it's going to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to take place almost back to back. And as great as the original Strangers was, as you and I have, like we talked ad nauseum on the pod about how much we love that film was so incredibly well received. But for some reason, it was the rare Hollywood movie that didn't even try to do a sequel.
Yeah.
And didn't take hold of that momentum. And when Prey at Night came out, I could be wrong, but it was around 10 years later.
Yeah.
If not more.
And really, like, if you're talking like a sequel, not that this, I mean, this happens a lot with horror, but it was basically like disconnected from the first one. Like, yes, the killers are the same group, but, and especially if you remember how, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the way that it ends, it's like, yeah, we're probably not planning on doing another one.
Very odd behavior. Like, again, I enjoyed the twist ending. It gave us something new and fresh. But it always seemed like The Strangers was, I don't even know if you can only call it a franchise now. I don't think you could call it a franchise a few years ago. They just didn't know how to like take it to the next level. And I don't know that this will be taken to the next level, but the only reason I'm justifying the way they did chapter 1, because I personally didn't get much from it. I was like, whatever. I think if someone in high school, like when we watched Strangers, had seen this for the first time and never saw the original, they might have felt differently.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give them that. And I will hold judgment until Strangers Chapter 2.
I mean, I don't think there's any denying that the plan, like you said, this was planned as 3 movies basically telling one story. So it could be a horrible mistake and it just like really overstays its welcome, or having seen the first one, even if you're not a huge fan of everything that played out or the ending specifically, you could just rationalize it to yourself as a crazy fan saying, well, it's only like the first act basically.
Yeah.
So it's too early to judge it.
I think that's why I liked Prey at Night, because like it wasn't, or that's the one problem with these Strangers movies. And it will be interesting to see where they go. They can only do so much. There can only be so many times the killer's fucking with the people inside the house. There can only be so many times that you see the killer standing in the background. And at some point you get numb to it.
Right. That can only be creepy to a certain extent.
Yeah. And Prey at Night just tried different things. It will be, I'm curious to see what their idea is and where they go from here. It feels like Halloween 2 with the buildup of the victim in the hospital at the end of the first one. And Halloween 2, of course, is Michael Myers continuing a hunt at the hospital, because it takes place immediately after Halloween.
Right. Yeah, the Strangers Prey at Night, I think the reason I liked it so much was it actually did have a really creative way to keep that like spookiness of the strangers are always around the corner, putting them in a new locale, which was more wide open, but still also somehow felt claustrophobic and like you were trapped. But I really don't know. Like, I couldn't even come up with a third idea to make another follow-up. So, again, this one kind of being a shot-for-shot remake and then sort of playing out over the course of 3 films definitely has me intrigued, just mainly because it's something that, off the top of my head, I can't think of another horror franchise that's done this.
Yeah.
A pre-planned trilogy, basically all taking place seemingly within like a 36-hour period.
Yeah, and I thought for a second we were going to get Chapter 2 this year. I thought originally we were getting it, but it looks like it's coming out in early 2025.
Yeah, I mean, they're all done, right? Like, they're done filming?
I think from what I looked at least the first 2 are filmed together.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what I saw.
Well, we'll have to touch base again early 2025 when that comes out. All right, next one, Cycly, real pleasant surprise for me. I was hooked when I saw the trailer for this. Although I did tell you, I think they gave us more in the trailer than they needed to, because there could have been an epic reveal in the movie. And that is the film Abigail, which I think I saw it first, but you and I were both kind of after.
No, you convinced me to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. After the trailer, we were like, this is like trashy in all the right ways for us. What did you think of Abigail?
It was, yeah, I think you and I both felt the same way when the trailer came out, and they didn't hide the fact that the way that trailer starts and this mob is like, or not mob, but it's like gang is kidnapping this girl. And I was like, oh, and her father's clearly important. I was like, oh, okay, damn. Oh, this movie looks great. And then they reveal in the trailer that she's a vampire. So that's not spoilers. Everyone's seen that. I was really annoyed. Man, if there's one genre that you just got to scale it back on the trailers. And I'm about to go into this hard on the next movie I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
It's horror movies. You can just leave some to the imagination. But when I watched this film, you realize that there is no twist that she's a vampire.
Yeah.
Like it's highly.
It gets revealed, I would say, maybe a little earlier than the halfway point in the movie.
Yeah. And it's not, and then as you watch it, you realize that's not the point of the movie. That they act, like, I mean, it is, but it's not. There's a bigger story involved. At the end of the day, this is just a fun movie.
Yeah.
Like, this is exactly why you go to the movies. Like, I don't need to be wowed sometimes. I don't need to be watching an Oscar-winning or worthy performance or writing or directing. This was just fun, and I could turn my brain off. And it was ridiculous. Had great kills, great action sequences, left a lot go. Like, a lot of entertainment.
A lot of like very one-dimensional characters, which I love in horror movies because it makes it so much more fun if they do get
a lot of stereotypes. I love
right. If they do get gruesomely murdered and bloodied up, it always makes it great. And there's a big, well, not a big, but there's a pretty solid cameo in it that's really fun to see. And I think over the past few years, I've just kind of we've gotten a few good ones, and we're getting a few more, especially with like Nosferatu. But the vampire genre to me is kind of back, man. Last Voyage of the Demeter was one of my favorite movies of the. I think it was 2 years ago that it came out. One of my favorite horror movies of that year, and I'm kind of a sucker now for any time these films come out, something vampire centric.
I think it's kind of like, why can't you do like, it's like, why can't you can have multiple horror movies that are supernatural. You can have serial killer movies. Like, there's nothing wrong with the vampire genre. It's like when it's played out and it's like repetitive.
Yeah, and I think the reason I have liked a lot of the vampire fare we've gotten lately is they have found ways to sort of reinvent it. Like even something like Renfield was interesting to me with Nicholas Hoult and Nick Cage. Like
I actually liked Renfield a lot.
A comedic take on it. Yeah, so Abigail, it might make it would be at the bottom, but if we do a top 10 list overall at the end of the year, it might be one that sneaks into the very end of my list. I had a lot of fun with it. All right, I've done like 4 in a row. What do you got?
I was just going to mention, I kind of misled you, by the way. I was going to do Speak No Evil. That came out this year, and now I
2 weeks ago, right?
I haven't seen it, but what I have seen is the original film that it's based on. The Danish film in 2022.
That recent, and they already remade it?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
God,
that's absolutely insane. Like, so what I just want to say is kind of allude to why I haven't seen Speak No Evil, because I saw the original and loved it. It's incredible. It kind of goes back to where we talk about the trailers. Fun. This was the most seen trailer. It was all over the place. Everywhere.
AMC was obsessed with
and here's the thing, I'm not against showing the trailer. If you've seen the original, the trailer will piss you off. It shows absolutely everything. There is nothing like outside of the final ending that honestly can be easily guessed because of the trailer. That like leaves me, as someone who saw the story, to be excited about this film. And I get it. It's like, okay, new audiences. There's a lot of people who don't watch foreign horror movies or whatever like that. But even if you had, I'm curious what you thought with the trailer, because in my opinion, and maybe I'm just misleading myself. Maybe because I've seen it, I was pissed at the trailer. But I felt even if I hadn't seen it, the trailer shows everything. There's nothing to be. There's no, like, the family they're staying with is clearly fucking with them. That's given away. Something else is going on. They're trying to escape from the family. Something's up with their kid. It's just like,
yeah.
What,
I mean, all those things are explicitly shown. Yeah, I mean, I was still very intrigued just because James McAvoy in horror is.
Yeah, love him. Yeah.
He's just awesome all around. He's just a cool ass dude and is insanely fucking talented. But yeah, I remember thinking after I saw the trailer, I was like, does this have any bullets left in the chamber, or did it just like show me its full hand?
It's like a comedy that you watch the trailer and then you watch the movie, you're like, oh, they showed every funny scene in the trailer. Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, well,
sadly happens too often.
And it's gotten good reviews. I think, again, a lot of people maybe don't know the original, and I will probably see it. I absolutely was going to wait till streaming, but I just wanted to bring it up because it really, for me as a horror fan, just solidifies why I hate these trailers sometimes. If you just you can tell the story with the trailer without giving anything away, and everyone will still be interested in that.
Yeah,
like, why show the family be bad? That's going to be the majority of the film. Like, the build up in saying like, hey, the family's getting suspicious, they're getting nervous. Like, are they crazy? Are they misunderstanding? Are they misinterpreting? But you go into the film knowing like they're gonna meet this family and this family's fucking with them.
And I feel like horror, more so than anything, has like, and this is why they can keep making them because they're so cheap and they know this. There is a built-in audience for these movies, meaning
Yeah.
you don't have to do as now. It's not massive. It's not like a tentpole comic book film or something that's going to maybe gross $500 million, but you have to do less selling with a horror movie. It's more so like the concept. And there's a $15 to $20 million box office return, I think, for something that at least conceptually intrigues people. So showing the full hand or your full deck of cards in the trailers, there's really not as much to gain from it out there. Like, who's going to this movie? And maybe this isn't how marketing thinks at all, but who's going to this movie because they're like, dude, once I saw that the family was like fucking with them, that's when I was in.
I will say this. I talked to a lot of people, a lot of friends who have not seen the original, who literally were like
That's
frustrated by the
me.
trailer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who watched the trailer and was like, like, what's gonna be that? What's there? What's the buildup? What's the scare? And I was like, people like the trailer was pissing people off. So I actually don't feel like the film has done as well. I mean, it's gotten good reviews, but I don't think it's doing that like overall. It's like probably hitting the numbers in terms of the star power in the film.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. I just wanted to bring it up because horror films, dial it back on the trailers, people. Horror and then comedy is next. Like, just don't show me everything.
Right. You don't have to. All right. What else you got?
Well, I'm going to combine these two. I know you've seen one, but not the other. These were kind of sister films that came out, obviously unrelated, but it's kind of like A Bug's Life and Ants or Armageddon and
Deep Impact.
Deep Impact. We got Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney and First Omen that came out within a few weeks of each other. And I've seen both. I know you've only seen one, correct?
Yeah, I saw the First Omen.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It's probably my favorite horror movie of the year.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. You have two films that are very similar in plot in terms of an American Catholic girl travels to Italy to become a nun at a convent. Obviously, weird stuff is going on at the convent behind the scenes, kind of
There is like a whole subgenre of church horror that exists.
Oh,
like
the visuals for church horror are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But so very much these films are almost incredibly similar. The first one is obviously based in lore of the original Omen and the subsequent films that followed that. As a big fan of the original Omen, and I have seen the second and third one, which movies are fine, but the first one's iconic. I believe it is in my top 100. I think it's actually like maybe 100. The difference between the films was the quality and the pacing by far. Like Immaculate starts strong. The first third of it holds serve for sure comparatively, and just absolutely loses itself for the second act and the majority of the third act. And it just literally feels completely rushed. It's like a relatively short movie, and you just feel like all of a sudden it lost sense of itself up till the end. It's like, am I missing scenes? Am I missing dialogue? Like, is something going on? And then the last like 10 minutes, Sydney Sweeney, who I always think is an okay actress, honestly. Like, we'll give our opinions why she's very famous, but she's an okay actress. I don't think she's like the best ever. But she gives her best performance. I've seen her in a lot of things in the last 10 minutes of this film. Oh, wow. Like, she stretches herself. And I like the end of the movie, I was like, that was really good. Too bad for 80 minutes of this film, it was dog shit. And the reviews, I feel like, reflect that. Whereas First Omen, again, almost identical plot in some ways. The ambiance of the film, to me, again, supernatural, relatively speaking, that, again, I knew that going in, didn't take away from the film for me. The score, the film style, the cinematography, the performances, and the actual strong plot that held itself the entire time.
I think a masterclass in pacing, I would say.
Yes. I was seriously, as I'm watching this film, I'm yelling at my wife because she wasn't watching it with me. Because I thought it was going to be like Immaculate. I was like, eh. And I was like, Robin Sparkles, get in here. Like, you need to be watching.
You are missing the surprise of the year.
Like, I'm genuinely getting freaked out. Like, I'm genuinely getting
some great body horror stuff.
Yes. I'm like, and when I say scary, it's different from the Strangers type scary where I think someone's going to break in my house. It's these films can give me eerie feelings, like back on the neck, hair on the back of the neck, kind of just like uncomfortable feeling. This film got me so many times. to me the not only best movie of 2024 for horror genre, but also like I don't think people saw it coming.
No, I definitely didn't. I mean, Omen obviously has a lot of cachet as an IP, but the whole like, all right, we're gonna do the prequel now that it's actually connected to the original. But 35, 40 years later, it's been played out a little bit. But not only did this one stand on its own as a great horror movie, but I won't spoil anything, obviously. But the way that it does connect to the original, I'm like, you didn't need that, but that's pretty fucking cool.
I mean, we got the Omen remake in 2006 when they did the 666 release date, which was great. But that was basically a shot-for-shot remake, and we've gotten a bunch of sequels from the original. But I will say this movie should be studied in the sense of how movies want to respect the original and not shit on it, like a la like the most recent sequel of Star Wars, right? Like, stop retconning.
Right.
Don't say we can't add. Don't say it can't complement it. But this movie respected the original Omen and built on the foundation that it did. Whereas like the new Star Wars were like, you're changing things, like you're devaluing who the Skywalkers were. You're devaluing Luke. You're devaluing Anakin. Like all this kind of stuff. I'm like, there's a way to respect your mother IP kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this one, like, you might not even understand some of the connections to the original. You don't even need it for this to still be a really effective and well put together horror movie.
Yeah, I really wish more people had seen this.
I think it's the best horror movie of the year. I don't think that's
not sugarcoating it.
Yeah. All right, what else?
Let's see.
I think I have two more that we both
have. Yeah,
watched.
go ahead, because I only have left. I think I have a couple with you, and then there's a couple I was going to say I'm looking forward to or talking about. So
let's talk about one that, and I don't think we'll have too much to say about this because outside of the concept, there's really not much there. But a movie that you and I were very interested in, not necessarily excited for, but interested to see it based on the concept of it, and that was In a Violent Nature.
Oh yes.
So, Cycly, tell the people what was actually like the premise of this movie and what made us say, all right, I got to see if that works or not.
So what the premise of the film is, you follow the killer's perspective.
The whole time.
The whole time. Well, yeah, we'll get into that. But yes, the whole time you're basically, it's almost like you're he's a video game character.
That's the best way to describe it, right?
You are literally, the POV of the killer. And you and I think we're particularly drawn to this plot because we have had a conversation about the original Strangers. Again, we've already talked about how much we love it. And we always said, what a cool sequel would be, what if we got the same new movie, but from the killer's perspective?
Yeah. Like, what does a jump scare look like from the person who does the scare?
Well, the planning, because like the original Strangers, they're fucking with the family, right? They're not just going there to kill.
Right.
And so we became kind of excited about this idea, a movie from the killer's perspective. And so I think when you and I saw the plot, we're like, in.
Hello, you froze.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so that's what drew us in.
And I think the problem with the movie is it tries so much to just focus on that concept that there are moments where I was like, it was the middle of the day when I watched this, and I was like dozing off because there are actual scenes that I think last almost 2 minutes where the killer is just walking through the woods in the middle of the day. And it's really like playing a video game. You're like trying to get to a certain location or like find your next mission. And I remember thinking like, what is this in service of? Like, I don't know. I know every single second of a film, some directors might totally disagree, but it doesn't have to be necessarily kinetic or like moving the plot forward. But I feel like there was 7 minutes of this movie that not only could be edited out, but never even needed to be shot or filmed in the first place.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. Like, I get the dynamic of what he was trying to accomplish, but I don't think it's necessary to, like, you wouldn't walk out of the film if they like skip some of those scenes and being like, I wanted more of him walking.
Yeah.
Like, we get the point.
And there was one really, really good kill. I don't know how they did it with practical effects and made it look so good. But I think it's not necessarily the film's fault. But when I finished the movie, and maybe you felt the same way, I just remember saying to myself, you know what? I think they executed that concept as well as you can. And now I know it's just not that interesting. I thought it might be. It's just not.
Sometimes art needs to just show you what not to do.
Right. No fault of the films. I don't think, like, the concept was interesting enough to definitely get me to watch it. It's like if you try a food, you're like, oh, that looks good, but you don't like it, and you're like, all right, well, now I've tried it and never need to try it again.
It's why my wife go to Olive Garden every 3 years. It's like, oh, this is why we don't come more often. Well, it's like
your analogies tonight are incredible. You've compared Longlegs to Mulan and In a Violent Nature to Olive Garden.
Well, yeah, I think most people do that, Jeff. I'm not the only one who compares those.
We're in rare form.
The only thing I actually will say is I walked out and watched it in my living room. I think you and I talked about this. My least favorite part of the film was actually the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's where it got really weird. It like all of a sudden decided we have a narrative, we just forgot to tell you.
It's like the studio came in and go, we don't like this new concept you just tried. It's like the last 15 minutes, I'm like, I'm not saying I enjoyed him walking through the woods, but
that's what the movie is, you know?
I respected the move.
And the whole time at the end, this is like mild spoiler, so skip ahead if you don't want to hear it for In a Violent Nature. But you keep expecting the movie to like sort of fall back on what it's been doing for the last hour and 10 minutes. And it doesn't. It commits to whatever that thing it started with like 6 minutes left in the movie. Yeah. Really weird.
Yeah, I was like, well, that just took away everything from me.
I remember thinking, like, did I miss part of the movie? Because like this character who we've hardly seen at all, now it's like all about her.
Her and the driver, it's like it's something. Then you almost start overplaying it in your head. You're like, "Oh, is she involved? Oh, is it this?" And then it ends up being nothing. You're like, "Okay."
Yeah, it was weird. It was very. It definitely felt like studio notes.
Yes, it really felt like we don't like what you did here. We don't like new is always better, except when it's not.
Right. The director's like, so you want me to do that? It's gonna be like you're gonna get fucking whiplash. That it's like now all of a sudden it's a movie shot from the perspective of the people getting killed.
And we don't even see the killer again, do we?
I don't think we do, except for maybe that one shot in the woods. But I don't know if that's before at the very end. It was just weird. But again, I'm glad that they tried something experimental. It just now we know, not for me. All right, what else?
I was just really gonna say, do you have any that you've watched? I was gonna make a really quick reference to a couple that were still coming.
Yeah, I'll talk about this one really fast. Beginning of the year, I think speaking right to that, like the February horror movie that always comes out, I saw Night Swim, which is, I think Blumhouse is good for one of these a year. You can tell they probably made it on like an $8 to $10 million budget, which I normally think is awesome. And it's a concept that, they're going to either have you bought in or not. This one is a family with the main character played by Wyatt Russell, buys a house in the suburbs as part of Wyatt Russell's character sort of dealing with, he's having like muscular dystrophy. He's a professional athlete who's basically losing his career due to the disease. And the pool in their backyard starts having a very positive effect on his body, but at what cost? And to me, the movie was actually pretty interesting, had some decent like horror elements and like some cool visuals. It falls into that trap though, where like in the third act, there's that like one character that shows up that is just like beats you over the head with exposition. And when they explain like everything happening, you're just kind of like, that's not that cool actually. So some dark visuals, like kind of a cool concept I'd never heard of before. I just don't know if this has the magic dust that something like Smile or some of these other Blumhouse movies have that's going to get a sequel or a couple entries. I would probably not recommend watching it, but if it's on TV and someone is like, hey, do you want to watch this? Like, there's definitely worse horror movies that have come out in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think the only reason I hadn't seen it is because of you kind of convinced me not to. Not necessarily that you were trying to convince me not to, but you and I always don't mind spoilers to each other, right? We'll be like, hey, I just watched this movie. I don't know if you'll like it. And you're like, oh, just tell me about it then.
Yeah. Yeah, if we ask for the spoilers, you see that's a sign that we're not interested.
I'm like, and I also don't like, I'm all about the journey. Like, I'm not one of these, it depends on the film, but like, even if I know how a movie, I rewatch Lord of the Rings like every other day. It's like, I know what's happening. I just like enjoy it. So, yeah, this one kind of, I don't know. It just felt like one of those like, almost like an R.L. Stine kind of concept. Like, ooh, this, like.
You know what? Now that you say that, it does kind of feel like a Goosebumps book.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I fucking love Goosebumps.
I love
It's just like, Yeah, it didn't strike me as something I needed to watch ASAP. Like, I'm not against watching it. And I actually saw it the other day. I think it's on Netflix now. And I was like, maybe I'll watch it. My wife's out of town for the next week and a half. Like,
It's short. I mean, Blumhouse gets it. I think it's like an hour 25 minutes. Yeah. And I saw it in theaters early in the year.
If there's one thing I like, it's bad. I like all kinds of horror movies. Like, I really don't mind bad horror.
Yeah, and there's some fun scenes. I mean, it's not a train wreck. I'll put it that way. It's just not one that I was like. It's definitely not going to make. If we do like a top 10 horror movie list of the year, it probably won't make that.
This is a hard category this year anyway.
For sure. All right, I only got one more, and we both watched it together, so I'll let you go because maybe it's the one that I have.
Oh no, I was just gonna talk about movies I haven't seen like really quickly or anticipated come up. So.
Okay, do you want to do the last one that I have then, and then we can just run through that list? So, Late Night with the Devil.
Yes.
Which is another one that is just a real. I think one of the things this year that I appreciate about horror is just a lot of like cool concepts that like I haven't seen before. So Late Night with the Devil, if anyone isn't familiar, it's likely, is this like loosely based on a true story? I mean, obviously, like it's a little bit out there.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe there. I not that I know of. It's very possible that some late night show tried doing something like this, like to like boost ratings.
Yeah. So the premise of it is, what is it, like in the 70s?
Yeah.
I believe it's after like the Manson murders, right? Isn't that like kind of a loose?
Yeah, I believe so.
And it's a late night talk show host. I can't remember the name of the actor, and I'm too lazy to look it up.
I always like him. Yeah, I don't know his name. He's always like a second tier, third tier character in any movie I've ever seen him with.
But he is like an awesome character actor, like one of the best. And this talk show is basically like kind of had a fall from grace. There was a tragedy that had befallen the host, and so to sort of boost ratings, they do a Halloween special episode where they basically bring in like people who claim they can speak to the dead or like have like some supernatural abilities, and the episode is going to air live, and some things kind of go off the rails unexpectedly, and that's really like where the plot sort of takes off. So I love this for two reasons. Number one, the period piece of it to me was so fucking cool. Just seeing like something take place in the 70s, and like that just inherently has a little bit of horror element to me, like a time period that I'm not as familiar with, sort of like makes me feel like a fish out of water. But then number two, the framing device of the film is not quite, but basically the whole movie is like them taping this episode in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And we really don't cut away from the studio after we get there. So
you and I are suckers for real time.
Oh, absolutely. So it's like what they're filming for the talk show, and then when they do go to commercial, like we stay with the characters, which to me is some of the coolest stuff. So that was something I'd never seen from a horror movie. But combine that with the setting, and I was all about this. Probably my second favorite horror movie of the year, behind The First Omen. What'd you think?
Yeah, so the actor is David Dastmalchian, and he's Armenian, so
nice.
No wonder I like him. Yeah, he's been like I always remember him from Dark Knight.
Dark Knight, yeah.
Yeah, where he's been in a lot of stuff.
He's an Ant-Man.
Yeah, he's literally if you look up his filmography, he's like really been around. He's just like, I don't know, maybe there's other movies that he has been the leading man, but I haven't.
To me, at least, this was like his first lead role, where he's like the top.
Yeah. What I will say is I completely agree with you on everything. Again, this is another supernatural horror movie that you and I knew going in was supernatural. Again, going back to the original conversation with Longlegs, I do not hate supernatural movies. It doesn't need to cheapen it. It's again going back to like, just tell me what you are, and let's move on from there.
Yeah.
I found it creepy. I love the filming structure, and like you said, my favorite scenes were the backstage scenes during the commercial breaks.
Yeah.
I thought the character performances were fantastic, and I actually love the cinematography. The style of the film absolutely makes you feel like you're watching 70s 70s late night TV, but it's also like a documentary. It's presented as a documentary.
And then, that's right. I forgot there's like the Talking Heads interview.
Yeah, the Talking Head is like, oh, we're going to show you behind the scenes. We're going to show you what actually happened that night. The only part I didn't like of the film is, and when I say didn't like, it was the little climax of the devil or the demon coming out of the girl. It was just it was more the special effects that came out with that. But again, it goes back to the point of like horror, supernatural doesn't necessarily scare me, but I still respected it and enjoyed it. Like I don't need to be scared to love a movie, a horror movie. And yeah, this film itself was, I just definitely the surprise and joy of horror 2024.
Yeah, and this was one I don't even think I knew this was coming out until like it had already come out, so I didn't see any of the marketing stuff. All right, Cycly, great way to close us out for our chest day. What else are you looking forward to in terms of horror movies coming out this year? I'll be honest, I am a little bit embarrassingly out of the loop on what's still to come in 2024 as far as horror. So a few of the ones you mentioned pre-pod to me actually kind of tickled my fancy.
The only one I will say, there's two that are out now and or have been out that I haven't seen, but I've heard really good things from. That's Oddity, which between Reddit and Rotten Tomatoes is like the second best movie of the year.
96% audience score.
Yeah.
Tomatoes. Right and 93 critics, I think.
And I believe the only movie that beats that on Rotten Tomatoes is Late Night with the Devil.
Wow.
And then there's the Substance, which just came out. I've heard very good things. But the movie I'm excited for that has not come out is Smile 2. And mainly because you and I were, I mean, especially me, loved the original Smile. It was a low budget. The story about the film where it was supposed to be a straight to streaming film, but then test audiences were like freaking out about it. The marketing that went behind the original
some of the
Smile,
best viral marketing ever. That
by far. And I watched this film, and you could tell it was low budget, but you're like, you saw why everyone was freaking out about it. And I loved Smile. I mean, it really gave me like, again, supernatural film, loved it. Gave me the heebie-jeebies. I am excited, but also worried for Smile 2. We're getting a full budget film now, right? Like this isn't going to have the low quality cinematography and script probably that we had in the first one, even though it was great. It's like, can you live up to that, or is the rawness of Smile what made it great? So I'm excited about it. I will definitely be in theater seeing it, but it has a lot of expectations to live up to, especially if it's going to have the full budget attributed to it.
Incredibly creepy trailer, which I think if they made 30 of these movies every time, they could make the trailer freaky.
Is it like Jack Nicholson's son or something in this?
Maybe. I know Naomi Scott, obviously, hashtag my Princess Jasmine, is the, and hashtag my Kimberly from the new Power Rangers movie.
Yeah, love it.
Is the main character. She's awesome. If they get Nicholson, that would be cool. This would then become almost like a lineage type franchise because they had Kevin Bacon's daughter in the first one.
Well, no, there's a poster with the smile, and they have Jack Nicholson. I think it's his son, and it's really iconic. But it's very much like you're like, oh yeah, that's Jack Nicholson's son.
Really? Okay. I didn't catch that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
When does this come out? Is it November?
I believe, yeah, relatively soon.
So Paramount, this is like one of their cash cows right now. So I'm wondering, I'm assuming it won't be day and date on Paramount Plus, but I would like to go out to the theaters to see it. But if I can't, the second this pops up on there, I'll be watching it for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, all right, anything else?
No, that's a good conversation. But that's how good the 2024 horror year has been. Like good or bad, it's like there's a lot here.
I know. Normally when we do our Spooktacular, it's just like in general horror movies. But you and I were kind of talking. We were like, dude, I think there's enough that we've seen this year. And there's a lot not a lot, but there's a few we probably haven't seen that. If there's a horror movie Cycle and I have somehow missed that is incredible, let us know. There was one that I was really excited for that is going to make my bottom 10 of the year. I don't want to say it right now, but very few horror movies have sucked so far this year, I'll say.
That's the thing, like you said. Is any of them going to stand out in like horror lore? Probably not. I think Longlegs was supposedly the one that was going to do it. But yeah, just a lot of solid hitters. A lot of 300 guys.
And you and I are sitting here thinking we were going to get a Saw movie this year, and we didn't. So
no, we don't. We might not get a Saw one for another year or two.
Right.
If ever.
Don't say that. How dare you? If ever.
And reverse jinx them.
Yeah. All right. That brings us to the second part of our show, our protein shake, where we go around and talk about what is in our cup, also known as what have we watched lately. Cycly, what's in your cup? What have you seen since we last spoke?
Man, I have seen a lot.
Same.
What? I probably don't need to talk about all of them. I'm going to lump two in together really quickly because I'm going to make a point about it, and I won't talk in detail about the show. I'm going to talk more general about what's going on with Netflix. I finished that 90s show. I finished Chaos. That 90s show, I think I mentioned Chaos before. That 90s show really found its footing in season 2, part 1 and 2.
The wife and I are halfway through the second season,
It's
and we don't love it, but we definitely like it.
part 3 or part 2 is way better than part 1 in season 2, just FYI. That's where it really like gets going. But I think we've talked that we don't need to go into depth about it. Like season 1 was really just trying to be that 70s show with things going on. Season 2, part 1 kind of started getting away from it, and part 2, the like last 8 episodes, really finds its footing. Chaos,
I think my issue with it right now is like there are no characters that are like in between. I either love the characters or I hate them.
Yeah, they grew on me, except they grew
Ozzy's
on me in
my
part
favorite
2.
by far.
Yeah, I love Ozzy, absolutely. But what I was going to say, and I think last time I did a review is Chaos. I think it was only a few episodes into Chaos. So I have also finished Chaos since then. And Chaos was really fun. Sorry?
I said I saw the news about it. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, don't even be sorry. That's kind of what I want to talk about. Is like Chaos was really good. It was really original. Whether you love it or not, like I don't think I loved it, but it was fun. It was entertaining. It was unique. Like I think last time I mentioned it was like Romeo and Juliet, 1996. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of that on top of this. But what Netflix is doing now, so both of these shows just got canceled. And
yeah, I don't get it, to be honest.
And Netflix is literally getting to a point, dude, I don't even know if I want to commit to shows anymore on Netflix.
Yeah, until they have like 3 or 4 seasons, what's the point?
It's getting so exhausting that they cancel. Like, here's what bothers me. They don't even allow shows to grow. Like, Netflix's whole thing is they release everything at once, right? And so how can you release something like Chaos a month ago and only in 1 month say, we're canceling it? Like in a normal sitcom or normal show, you get a year's worth for the show to grow, right? Word of mouth is big with these shows. They would have canceled Breaking Bad, Seinfeld immediately if you just base it off of the first month's ratings.
Probably.
Mad Men, everything. So many of the greatest shows of all time would not survive the way Netflix is doing it. And I'm not saying these shows are going to be great or the greatest shows. They are allowing no room for word of mouth to spread on these shows. They're allowing no room for these shows to just build themselves up. The thing about 90s show is the characters were finally finding themselves.
Yeah, which happens a lot of time with sitcoms, like a season and a half or 2.
Yes, it takes time. How I Met Your Mother, Seinfeld, Friends, all of them, all of the greats were not who they were in the very beginning.
And they don't do the week-to-week model, but they've like I don't know if they met us halfway because it's like a 10th of the way, but now they'll do like parts of their seasons.
That's what they did with that 90s show. All I'm gonna say
they did that with, but yeah, they're like, we're trying, we just can't resist.
But it's just like unless the show already had built-in growth, like again, You was a Lifetime show.
Yeah.
That they put on Netflix and had such a build-up before Netflix even was like, oh, people like this, we'll give you guys a second one. That took years before Netflix picked it up. So it's really pissing me off. Like I am literally getting to the point where like, why am I even watching a Netflix show? Unless it's an anthology or like a mini series, what's the point?
Right, and they have kind of gotten notorious for the quick trigger with canceling stuff. I don't really understand why that is. I'm sure there's some fiscal reason or something, but between that and like you said, I don't understand how it helps churn to release the shows either all at once or in 2 parts, because like isn't the whole like revenue model for these streaming services like month to month maintaining or growing your subscriber base? And if I can binge a show once it comes out and then effectively cancel because none of these streaming services have contracts, how is that helping grow your
It doesn't. Well, all they care about is releasing new content and like, oh, this show's good, pulled. This show's good, pulled. It's getting like we're getting to the point now we're all used to the game. 5 years ago, we're like, oh, okay. But now I'm like, man, if I think of some of my favorite Netflix originals, they didn't survive past 2 seasons.
Yeah. We'll have to do a state of streaming at some point because it has really changed in like the last 2 years. And I don't think at all for the better, to be honest. All right, I'll go quick with a couple of these. So I got two commentaries I just want to plug for the people out there that we've done that are both spooky centric or at least horror related. Cycly, Banner, and I watched the 1982 cult classic, The Slumber Party Massacre. And I had actually watched it before we did the commentary, which you can check out on our channel right now. So I'm a sick fuck because I watched this movie twice in like a week.
I mean, there's a lot of good nudity in it, so I don't blame you.
Yeah. I mean, aside from the nudity, Cycly, what would you tease about our Slumber Party Massacre?
Outside of the nudity,
Yeah. Is there anything?
was
Is there
there
any
anything
selling
else
point?
in the film?
If
I
there
don't know
was, I
what you're
missed
talking.
it.
It's a movie that like literally tries to be satire, but also a natural slasher movie. It's figuring out its like balance there. That's
Yeah,
what
I
I
feel
would
like
say for
there's
it.
parts of the movie where it's like, hey, I know that we were kind of like playing this as a joke for a little bit, but we actually have a really cool idea we want to try for real.
Yeah.
If we may.
It's like the Lonely Island or something. They're like, fuck, we're gonna make this stupid song, and you're like, okay, actually, the song's a fucking banger.
That's another great analogy. Yeah. Or it's like, oops, our bad. We actually did that competently.
Yeah, but it's still funny. But you're like, but it's still good.
Yeah, like
Like
I
I'm
just
gonna
had
run to
sex
that
on
song.
Lonely Island. Yeah.
Yeah.
One other commentary Cycly and I did. This one just dropped as we're recording this, I think last week. But we did the was it 1998 or 96? Halloween Town, the Disney Channel original movie. Can you double
Oh
check?
yeah.
When did that one come out? Cycly, what do you want to tease about Halloween Town? Again, this is one. It's 98. This is one that just really gets me in the mood for spooky season because I just have a lot of memories of it as a kid, and it's campy in like all the ways that a Disney Channel original movie is when it's going right.
I was actually really impressed with the visual. Not I wouldn't say visual effects, but the costume design of Halloween Town.
Yeah.
Like it again. This was back in the day when Disney Channel was churning out movies every month, and yeah, it was a fun one. I mean, I don't think it holds up as well as I remember as a kid, but it's still it's just fun to revisit.
Yeah. If you know what you're getting yourself into, it is perfect for the Halloween season. And I did say on the commentary, this is the movie that like when we have trick-or-treaters come over, it's playing on our projector for them to see in our living room.
You're a better person than me because I literally have like Scream playing when kids come to our movie.
If you can't hit the big dog, stay on the porch, you know?
The parents of the kids are like, "Are you watching Scream?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yes.
What's your issue?
You got a problem? Fucking go home. My house. All right, what else you got, Cycly?
Well, I started the Monsters, the Menendez brothers story on Netflix.
Yeah.
Have you started that?
No, my sister-in-law is obsessed with it, and she wants us to watch it. But I was
so,
Cycly, we went to high school with a guy in this show.
Wait, who's in it? Text me.
Okay.
Is it my ex's who my ex cheated on me with?
No, it's not. I would have told you that.
That one is so funny. Here's the thing is you and I were definitely of age at the time, like the O.J. Simpson, the Menendez brothers. Like I remember this.
Yeah, I remember bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, I don't remember like every detail, but I remember it being a thing. Javier
Bardem is in this, right?
Yes, yes, he plays
wild.
the dad. Yeah, he's the guy we went to high school with. That's
yeah, Javier Bardem. They're like, what?
All I'll say is so far I'm only 3 episodes in. As someone who knows the story, I studied I've looked at it from a legal basis and everything like that. It's really intriguing. Obviously you have 2 kids, this true story where they kill their parents, and they're extremely rich and they go live it up after the death of their parents. And this is a fun fact. They're on a NBA trading card. Like they're in the background on
oh wow.
Courtside seats. This is true. Like I can't remember the player.
Happened?
It's in New York. They're at a New York Knicks game, I believe. And they are literally like iconically in this trading card for forever. The only thing I'll say is like I'm not sure that I like the film structure and style of the film of the show. They're going the pacing between past and present. They're not going in chronological order. Every episode kind of jumps back and forth. And I don't mind that overall, but it's not doing it in a way that makes sense. Like when I think about some of the American crime stories, like the O.J. Simpson one, for instance, and this is not American crime story, but I'm just comparing it to that.
Yeah.
Whereas they did the O.J. Simpson, they would show him in trial and they would show the lead up of what went down.
Which
And
that's like
even
a
though,
really natural way to time
yeah,
jump. Like,
and the time jump at least felt natural because it was in chronological order when they would go back in time.
yeah. Oh, this one doesn't even do that.
This one doesn't even do that. They're jumping all over the
I'm
place,
already confused and I'm not watching
and
it.
it's just like it's just kind of taking away from the horror of it all. I'm not talking about they very much can be victims, right? Like there's a lot of allegations, and it's interesting to say that like the father was sexually abusing them, and you could have a moral conversation on kids having the right to kill the dad. I'm not here to talk about that. Like that's why the story is intriguing and why people are obsessed with the story. It's just that they could respect it more. It's very dark and morally confusing, and the film structure is almost making it feel like gimmicky, and it just kind of diluting it. So I'm not saying I'm not enjoying it. I just feel like they could have done it way better. The American crime stories, the ones with like again O.J. Simpson, and then who was the serial killer in the 90s? They got killed Versace. Can't remember the name, but
Oh,
that was
yeah.
season 2. That was season 2 of American Crime Horror. Fantastic. And that one went backwards every episode, and I love that. Like I'm not saying you have to do one story chronologically. Like this one's just taking away from it to me.
Yeah, some of these framing devices, like, we're getting a little out of control. We got to chill out.
Kunanen, that's the guy.
Never would have
Anyway,
guessed that. So, how many episodes is it?
I think it's 9 or 10,
Are they
or 8 or 9
hour?
or 10. Yeah, they're about an hour long.
Jesus. Oh my
Like
goodness.
it's fun for sure. Like I mean it's well acted.
Yeah, I mean, the quality looked really good. So,
Yeah, Andrew Cunanan. Sorry, serial killer Andrew Cunanan killed Versace, season 2 of American Crime Story.
interesting. They need to bring those back. FX, come on, man.
Those were fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure there's another murder out there that we can.
Yeah, at least one or two.
All right, I guess let's talk about maybe one, maybe two of these things. I watched the movie Blink Twice, the Zoe Kravitz directorial debut starring Channing Tatum. Have you seen any trailers for this?
No.
So, concept had me really intrigued. The premise is Channing Tatum is a tech mogul in the vein of like Mark Zuckerberg or maybe even like an Elon Musk. And something happens. You kind of learn throughout the movie what it is, but basically the film starts off with him basically getting canceled, and he has to sort of like reform his image, and he's like apologizing for something he did. And the film jumps off. Channing Tatum is at this charity event, and he meets our protagonist. I can't remember the character's name, but she works for the catering company there, and he invites her and her friend out to his private island with a bunch of his friends for like the week, where they just
Okay.
get shit faced and act like idiots. And they go out there, and things start to get a little bit crazy and go off the rails. And someone in the group dies suspiciously.
I hate when that happens.
I know. Every single time
God, we
we
can't
go to Dave
ever
and
go out
Buster's.
together.
I know. That's why we stopped going to KFC. So the film takes off from there, and there is a pretty big twist in it at some point, and it's pretty interesting. And then it has a pretty beat you over the head with it message at the end, which is where it kind of lost me a little bit. But it's very interesting. A lot of cool faces in this cast. We got Christian Slater. We have Haley Joel Osment, Gina Davis, among others. Interesting movie. Sort of like a whodunit, but then it's also kind of like a psychological
But
thriller.
not a
as well.
delicious whodunit, just a
Not a
whodunit.
delicious one. Yeah, just sort of like
Yeah.
an unseasoned whodunit.
Okay.
I would recommend it though. I think you and the wife would like it.
Yeah, I'll watch it.
Blink Twice. I watched it at our local library.
Gotta support the local library.
Absolutely. Raid. So, all right, what else you got?
This will be fun for you. The wife and I watched. So we got home Saturday night from a wedding, and we were like, my wife was leaving on Sunday for to go visit her parents in Florida, And we just didn't want to think. We were tired, and we're like, you know what? We're just gonna go on Netflix, go to horror movies, and just hit play. Literally didn't just hit play on a random film. Didn't even know anything about it. Didn't read the synopsis. Found out within 2 minutes that this film wasn't even in English. It was in Swedish. The film was called The Conference. So we're like, oh, but clearly they were just calling it The Conference on Netflix. But it's not actually called, the name of the movie is The
Right, that's like
Conference
the
in Swedish.
translation.
But we're like, oh, we both looked at each other like, are you down to watch read subtitles? And we're like, yeah, why not? We said we didn't want to think and go choose. So we just said, we'll watch it. Slasher film.
Really?
So a group of office mates, like 8 people who work together in like some sort of city planning type organization, go on a retreat. And obviously from the beginning of the film, you can tell, like, office dynamic, everyone has different personalities. Everyone is different ages, right? Like, just very much office style.
Yeah.
They get, and they're clearly like one girl is like been out for maybe mental health reasons, and they allude to it a few times, and they get to their resort, and one by one, all of a sudden, like someone goes missing, or like a hotel employee goes missing, and you're getting a little more backstory. And I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, like clearly there is a killer on the loose, and there is a motive for the killer to attack the specific group. Some really, really good kills. Wouldn't say at any point I was like scared. It's not.
Does the killer have a mask or anything like that?
Yes. Here,
Ooh,
hold on.
okay.
If you
The
Google
Conference, I will.
the conference, it's a mascot mask. It's a big head. It's actually one of the things that the Office group uses as part of their marketing.
Is he like a?
It's like
looks like a Dutch boy or something.
Yes, exactly. It's like
pretty
with
creepy.
lederhosen on. Yeah. But it's something the marketing guys are using, and they're filming a commercial with it.
Okay.
And the killer, when he breaks into one of the rooms,
so he probably has a connection. Okay, got it.
He finds it while he's doing one of the break-ins, and he's like, "Oh, I'll put this on my head." Like, it's not like the killer was walking around with that thing. He found it in the middle of his kills and was like, "Oh, I'll put it on." The only thing I actually really enjoyed, both my wife and I were like, we're kind of enjoying this. The only time we paused it like once to just like do some other things, and then we came back to her like, it's like, what are you thinking about it? She's like, I'm having fun. The only thing I'll take away from it is
the tagline is the worst team builder ever.
That's a funny, yeah, kind of. The only thing I take away from it is some characters are just, and maybe this is something in Swedish horror movies, and so I'm absolutely going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Some of these characters are so over the top and ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, okay, no real person is like this. No real office colleague would behave this way on a work trip. Maybe that's just me, but that's the only thing that took me out of this movie a little bit, was like the ridiculousness of some of the characters. But honestly, it's a fun watch and pretty quick, pretty short.
Okay, I'm very interested. Always love a good
literally
slasher.
had nothing to go. Like, we literally we literally hit play. We were scrolling and just hit play.
I really respect that. A lot of bravery in doing that.
The fact that we started and it was like a foreign language film, and my wife were like, yeah, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah. Some of I have seen some really good horror like trailers on Netflix that end up being foreign language films that I didn't realize till I like got into the trailer, and I was like, I might give this a poke. You got anything else?
I mean, I'll just say I'm continuing my every Halloween tradition. My wife and I rewatch The Haunting of Hill House, which is just a beautiful, scary, like, it's just a fantastic. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a fantastic show. It's so, the character development, the family dynamic is horrible and realistic and raw and authentic, and the acting and writing is some of the best I've ever seen. One of the episodes is filmed in like one set, like without cuts.
Wow.
And again, I go back to saying, like, when I say I'm not a supernatural horror fan, like, this is, again, a supernatural show that I'm obsessed with. It's one of the greatest things Netflix has ever put out. And it's so worth rewatching every October.
Joe's wife from season 3 of You is in it, right?
She is, yeah.
Can't remember her name.
She is one of the big characters, yeah.
She's a pretty creepy actress. Like she can really deliver.
She's got that face. Like, she's
Yeah.
beautiful, but her face can, like, really
Yeah.
sell the horror.
Yeah, I can't even describe what she does, but it's fucking scary.
Yeah.
Works. All right, you got anything else?
No, go ahead.
All right, the only thing I'll say really quickly, I rewatched Beetlejuice from 1988.
Just don't say it 2 more times.
Yeah, I won't. Trust me. So I'll probably watch Beetlejuice at some point this month, just because it's Halloween.
What are you doing, man?
Yeah, I know. I'm daring him.
You're really getting.
And it'll be on digital soon. But man, I really had like a different memory of this as a kid that like did not match up with like my adult eyes viewing it. It's probably been like a decade at least since I saw it, and this movie's like kind of rough to get through, to be honest. First off, Beetlejuice doesn't show up until the 42-minute mark, which I had totally forgotten. But I actually didn't even like the movie was going on, and I was like completely forgot that it was Beetlejuice. It just felt like this weird, like insane, zany horror movie. Second off, the plot to it is like really dark, but it doesn't like acknowledge that or lean into it. Like I don't know if you remember the premise, but Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis's characters die in a tragic car accident in the first act, and the rest of the movie is them like they were unable to have a child when they were married in their like when they were alive, and so they have to watch this family move into their home, and because they don't want them there, they essentially want to like frighten them to leave.
No, I actually don't think I knew that. This is surprising. I fucking never seen Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I mean, I won't give it a glowing endorsement here, but and then it gets like Tim Burton crazy in the third act. But to be honest, up until it gets there, the whole time I'm just kind of wondering like, where's this going? Like, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to be scary? Are we trying to be like really heartfelt? Is this like a morose like family drama? I don't know. It doesn't really commit to anything until the third act when it gets Tim Burton-y. But at that point, like Beetlejuice shows up so fucking late that I'm just like, you guys wasted so much time getting here. Like,
does it improve when Beetlejuice gets there? Like, I'm curious because like from
not really.
It just
it just like shifts into something else, which it kind of feels like a different movie. And I like the parts when Beetlejuice is there, but I just didn't really know what it wanted me to think at that point. It doesn't feel like it is so convinced that Beetlejuice is what the movie. Maybe it's just mistitled. Let me put it that way. Maybe it should not be called. An equivalent would be like calling Anchorman like champ kind. Like
yeah, that's weird.
Because they have about the same amount of screen time.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Excuse me. And also Keaton, I don't know, as a kid I remembered him having like way more energy and being like way more vibrant as Beetlejuice. And in this, he's really not that. He's not like this zany off the walls character. He just has a few weird one-liners and sort of talks like he smokes a pack a day.
See, now I'm intrigued because I've always heard like people like loved it as kids and things like that.
Oh, I love the cartoon. I remember watching the movie a couple times, especially after Batman came out. My mom was like, yeah, Batman's the actor plays Beetlejuice. And I was like, fuck yeah, show me that. But man, it's just like I was bored most of the time, and without Beetlejuice being in it over half of it, I was really just kind of confused why it's called.
How does it make you feel about the new one? Like, does it make you want to see it? Does it make you like less likely to see it?
Well, the new one, the marketing to me actually looked really good. It looked like much more into that like weird Tim Burton zone. This one, half of it is like a normal movie, and then the other half is Beetlejuice shows up. So I guess the second one feels more like, although I've heard Beetlejuice also doesn't show up for a while in the second one, but I've heard, or at least based on the trailer, the second one looks more like a straight up Tim Burton wacky out there film, which is not always going to work, but at least if I go into a Tim Burton movie, that's what I'm expecting.
Right, it's fucking Tim Burton. Like, and people are like, oh, you're going to see the second one? I'm like, I just don't want to tell people I've never seen the first one.
Yeah, it's fine. People I think are People, this is one of those weird movies that they'll like give you shit for having never seen. You're like, really? Beetlejuice is the hill we want to die on?
I have a question. What is the original villain? I don't even know if this how little I know about Beetlejuice. Like bad person, where you look in the mirror, or you just say the name 3 times, right? Like you say Beetlejuice 3 times, he appears. But Candyman is also the same.
Bloody Mary, which I don't think is a movie,
yeah.
but it's like a urban legend.
There's a couple of these things that are like you say the name and they appear. Do you know the original?
I don't.
I honestly have always wondered where that came from. I remember hearing the Beetlejuice 3 times, but the original Candyman, I believe, came out before Beetlejuice.
I believe so, yeah.
So I just don't even know where that could just be an aura like thing like that has been passed down from generations. Like you don't say it. I don't know if Beetlejuice is a demon kind of thing. It's like you don't say that name 3 times or look in the mirror. Wait, what? Because even South Park did it with Biggie Smalls, Biggie Smalls,
Biggie
Biggie
Smile.
Smalls.
Biggie Smile.
like,
Yeah.
like it's a thing. So I'm like, what's the OG? If you know that, please comment. I would love to know.
We'll never know. It's impossible to know. But also, it's not. So I'll probably check out the second one this month and report back.
Yeah, please do.
All right. Ready to move on to the last part of our show?
Absolutely.
All right, it is the question and answer segment. Do you even lift bra? Tonight we are closing out not with our countdown of our top 100 movies, but there's just something happening in theaters right now that Cycla and I felt needed to be discussed. Cycla, I don't really know another way to tee this up for the question and answer segment here, but Joker Folie à Deux has been released in theaters.
You say I like saying it like really French.
Folie à Deux. And the first one was obviously a critical darling. It really sort of reimagined what DC was willing to do with their Elseworld stories and give a lot of creative freedom to directors who did not have to fit a story with one of their IPs into a cinematic universe, which is probably some of the best decisions they've ever made, even though some people might be frustrated by it. Joaquin Phoenix has never done a sequel and is notoriously against them. And when you and I heard in the marketing that this was possibly a musical, I mean, our brains went all over the place. So
I didn't want to believe it. Like what I was like, what do you mean by musical?
Yeah, a lot of people didn't.
I'm like, are they fucking with us?
So it's likely neither you and I have seen this, so I think this discussion will probably be more about like the cultural impact this has had and what is going on. But this movie is being destroyed critically. It has a 33% tomato meter and a 31% popcorn meter on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's going to lose with a small budget. Close to $40 million for DC. Todd Phillips, the director, refused to screen it for critics, and he refused any notes that DC Studios gave him and James Gunn. So, what do you make of what is happening right now with Joker Folie à Deux?
I'm going to say this as someone who has vehemently defended Joker. I know like a lot of people don't like it. I don't think you particularly were a huge fan of it, right? Like and nothing wrong with that, but I've always been someone who loves DC characters because I've always found them more relatable compared to Marvel.
For sure.
And again, like in that sense, it's like we're talking about supernatural versus realistic horror. Like there's nothing positive or negative about it. It's just whatever each person finds. And I always hated how DC was trying to become Marvel. I'm like, dude, Marvel has dominated and perfected their craft, especially in the early 2010s. Like, stop being that. Be your own thing. Okay, DC has always been the more adult, more gritty, more gingy, like just fucked up. Play into that, and that's why I've like again, it's some of the best Batman moments and things like that. I'm like, dude, bring more of that. And I loved the original Joker. I believe again, it's in like top like 80, I think, because I obviously like fucked up movies. I like dark. I like raw. It gave me a Gotham that I always want that we didn't get until the newest Batman that like felt like
and really like explored Gotham more than any other movie.
It was a disgusting Gotham. It's a Gotham I would never want to live in. Where I will always criticize Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight Gothams seem pretty clean, relatively speaking, compared to the
Dark Knight Rises. I mean, until like obviously like lower class overthrows the whole city, but Gotham is like pretty fucking nice.
But the city itself looks nice. Like
It's Chicago or it's Pittsburgh, I think.
Yeah, the Batman and Joker give us raw, authentic Gothams that we actually told in the comic books and the video games that come with DC, the Arkham the Arkham games.
Yeah.
Then we get the Joker, and it's also like, homage to Taxi Driver.
Oh, definitely.
It's and you can argue, but it's still too much. I, for one, loved the Joker. Absolutely get why it's divisive and why some people don't like it. But for me, I liked it. What I don't get about what they are doing with 2, I should have been the first person in line to see Joker 2. Right? Like, I am their target audience for this. And I have absolutely no motivation to go see this.
Yeah.
Outside of being like, is it really that fucked up?
I know. Now that I see how bad it is, it's like what made me want to watch Madam Web and Morbius. It's like,
but I don't know if you saw this. It's literally on par with like Morbius with the box office.
Yeah, it's got a 33% tomato meter, and the audiences hate it too. It's got a 31%.
This film was like a box office smash. The first one was, and now you have Lady Gaga in there. Like, oh, on name alone, this movie should be doing great. And then the fact that they said it was a musical, and then now they didn't want to advertise it that it was a musical. It's like they had no confidence.
What's the plan there? Like, I'm going to get in and not know it's a musical and see that it's one, and I'm going to be happy?
Yeah, they literally, no trailer shows it's a musical.
Maybe I'm an idiot. Mean Girls did that, and I was pretty pissed when I got into Mean Girls.
But what's the point? You really think people are going to go into the audience and be like wowed by it? So I'm just like flabbergasted at this idea where someone like me should be like this build up all year. That should have been my most anticipated film. Like, what are you doing? What are we doing here? Someone is just not saying. Someone is surrounded by yes men, and I don't know who is it. Todd Phillips? Who is it? Is it Joaquin? Is it Lady Gaga? Like, what the fuck?
Only thing I can think is this is. I mean, obviously, there's no denying the talent of Joaquin Phoenix, but the guy is like not living on the same planet that we are, right? Let's put it that way.
I don't think he has been for a while.
So this thing almost feels like a social experiment turned into a film. Like, Todd Phillips is like, can I make the worst movie possible and still get paid a lot for it? And just basically tell the studio, like, fuck off. I'm doing this, and you're just going to have to release it in theaters under the IP that we know will get people to pay attention to it. Even though it's not going to make money at the box office and drastically bomb, it's him basically saying, like, yeah, I have carte blanche to do whatever I want, and if I want to make a glorious train wreck, almost like Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, like, I'm going to fucking do it. Except
Jesus.
Here is Todd Phillips didn't do it on his dime. He did it on
right.
DC's. And for Joaquin Phoenix, it's almost like he's like the dominatrix, right? He's like, for me to still get the sensation that I get out of acting, it has to be it has to be like a level of the craft that other people are like, what in the fuck is happening right here? Like,
he can't do a normal role anymore. He would never accept the gladiator role anymore.
Oh, yeah. Or like the guy who plays in Signs, just like a dude, you know? Imagine him in like a sitcom. Like,
I would actually pay money to watch that.
Oh my God. So yeah, it's just wild. And a part of me does kind of want to go see it, like you said, just to see, like, can it really be that bad? Or what does a movie this bad look like? But also, I don't really want to, I haven't looked at the runtime, but I really don't want to take time out of my day to go to theaters or pay money for it. So I'll probably wait till it's on digital or my local library.
Oh, it's definitely going to be a movie I think both of us watch. Like, that's not a debate. The question is, in which way do we watch it? It's just disappointing. Like, how do you take something that was pretty revered and people were excited about, and just break it down into what they did with it? And I will tell you, people who are maybe like, well, you need to watch the film before you judge. I unfortunately got the whole movie spoiled for me on purpose. So I know everything that happens in the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I know what the end result is. And honestly, if anything, I'd respect the ending because that's something we predicted with the original.
That's actually cool. I actually kind of like what I've heard about the ending.
Yeah. But to get there, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I heard that ending was Todd Phillips' pitch for the original Joker, and DC said, no, we don't want you to do that.
Yeah. There was also that so the pitch, I think I told you, again, spoilers free because it just came out, that he wanted that character to do it to himself, and Christopher Nolan said no.
Yeah.
And then that's why they had a different character do that.
Yeah.
This time around. This movie is 138 minutes, so 2
Yeah.
hours. So take out credit time, 2 hours and
2
minutes.
Yeah. So it I guess that's about what I expected from the runtime.
Not horrible. I will watch it and we'll report back. And if I am pleasantly surprised with my low expectations, which sometimes when you go in expecting nothing, you come out feeling great about a film. The high expectations ruin a film for us. So maybe this will be good for me.
Yeah, I just don't know. Is it bad where it's like entertaining, or is it bad like people have been walking out of the theaters?
I've seen a lot of reports of people saying people were walking out of these theaters.
Yeah. I always am curious with that phenomenon. Like, what is the scene where you just go, I've had enough?
Well, that's why I think you and I need to watch. We need to do a blind commentary on the Black Dahlia, the only film we've ever walked out on.
Yeah. And separately, like we weren't together.
Yeah.
Which is also insane that movie's that bad that you and I, unbeknownst and not together, both walked out of it independently.
We have seen a lot of bad movies. If we can make it through the whole of Bikini Hackers.
That was a 52-minute movie that took me 3 sittings to get through.
I died 4 times watching that
film. You had a DNR and you got pissed when people resuscitated you.
Stop bringing me back.
This is nature's will. Just let me in.
This film is still on?
It's the longest 52-minute movie of all time.
Yeah. We'll report back when we watch Joker 2. It's more of a comment on, you don't need to just, originality is great, but you don't need to just go out of left field for this.
Well, at what point are we like not making a movie anymore and just trying to be dicks, you know? That's what I need to see with Todd Phillips. Like, it reminds me of How I Met Your Mother, Barney Stinson's one-man show, where he's really just up there.
Yes.
Basically, he's going to go until someone stops him.
Moist.
Yeah, moist. Spoiler alert, the robot falls in love.
Oh, I kind of want to watch it now. Yeah. So, again, we're both comic book fans on an alternate spectrum sometimes, but like, this was a movie I think I told you 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure it got delayed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I said it was one of my most anticipated movies coming up. And I'm like heartbroken.
Yeah.
I love Joaquin Phoenix. He's a fucked up actor, and give me that.
Yeah. It's basically like a sick practical joke. And with Joaquin Phoenix now, I mean, I don't really know if this is a question, but like between Beau is Afraid and this, like has he just reached a point where it's like his shit for the average movie fan is just so inaccessible you can't watch it?
He's like a heroin addict. It's like, hey, once you've had this peak, it's like, I need more. I need to be weirder and weirder because it's not satisfying anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of feel sorry for the guy because the sheer just concept of acting, like pretending to be someone else, just isn't doing it for him anymore.
No, I don't think so. He might be fucking bored.
Is there a rehab for method actors? There's got to be, right?
That's probably why Daniel Day-Lewis disappeared for a while, outside of his Yoshi performance in the Super Mario movie,
which was just phenomenal. Yeah,
yeah.
It's like, this is the role that I've been prepared for my whole life.
I still would have died if you just like, and Daniel Day-Lewis as a Yoshi, like holy fuck,
and just one time goes.
Yeah. I would pay a godly amount of money. He is coming out of retirement for one movie. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, really? No, I didn't.
Yeah, 7 years.
Jesus.
He's coming back for a film.
Was he cobbling this whole time?
Probably. I would love to be just in Italy, be like, your ice cream man, just be a fucking Daniel Day-Lewis. He's like, oh yeah, those films I was in, you saw those, huh? He's like, yeah, dude, you're like the greatest actor of all time. He's like, oh, no, I'd rather be known as a ice cream scooper.
Yeah, it's like the old Chris Farley show when he had Paul McCartney on. He's like, do you remember when you were in the Beatles? That was awesome.
Do you remember? Oh, fuck. R.I.P.
Yeah, big time. All right, Cycly, before we let the people go for episode 230, our 2024 Spooktacular, anything you want to leave the people with for this Halloween movie season?
I'm going to just honor our brother Banner. I'll just say this for him, we're in the spooky season, but it doesn't mean you can't be a good human being. Pull over for ambulances, pull over for service vehicles, cop cars, and ever. You don't know who's in that ambulance. It could be a loved one, it could be you one day, and you need people to pull over for you. So doing that for you, Banner. Just want to make sure your message is always passed on.
Yes, I completely agree. Now more than ever. I don't know if you heard. Did you hear about this blue alert that went out in Texas, where I'm from?
No.
So a blue alert. I didn't even know this till I received this. But
I know a gray alert, right?
Yeah,
Silver
that's
alert,
like
silver
senior
alert.
citizens.
Yeah.
So a blue alert is, because I've never received one of these before, and I'll be brief. It is when a police officer is attacked by someone, and that someone is able to flee the scene. So they're basically on the run. The blue alert that I got was for a town and county that is 7 hours away from me via car. And the blue alert went out to every single resident in my state at 4:30 a.m.
Okay.
On a Saturday.
You know what? Hey, Texas, working in your electrical grid. What are we doing here?
For real. Twitter was not happy about this blue alert. Let me just put it that way. And so let me just say this. If you're anyone out there sending messages to people that are 7 hours away asking for help, I'm fine with that, but I don't need it at 4:30 a.m. I can't do anything then. And I'm not going to get behind the wheel of my car and go on a wild goose chase for this guy in the middle of the night while I'm getting my REM.
I'm going to send you a video of, it's a joke video of people getting an Amber Alert and their reaction of what they're supposed to do as like an everyday citizen.
Yes,
you're going to love this. But what I don't get about this is how big Texas is. And very well, this attack could have happened near the border of New Mexico, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas. For some reason, even though those locations are closer to the attack, they get no warning, but you 7 hours away, because that's how big Texas is.
Right.
Is being told. Like, you could literally be in Bumfuck, New Mexico, and within 30 minutes, that person is there.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
like, what are we doing here?
Because I'd never heard of the town. I was like, okay, that's not good if it's that far away from me. Yeah, 7 hour drive. So I don't know if they expected me to wake up and get there by noon and be like, all right, what reports do we have on this guy? I'm a citizen here, a concerned citizen here to help. It's not what's gonna happen. All right, for our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli, I'm the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. We are the Bro Force Squad podcast. Thank you guys again for checking us out. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, at Bro Force Squad. We're on Letterboxd, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. If you type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words, and check out everything on our website, broforcesquad.com. Till next time, have a good time out there spooking people and haunting. And, if you're a zombie or something, just keep staying undead.
Ooh, that's good motivation for an undead zombie.
So, you know what? I needed that. I was about to die.
I was about to quit.
Quit zombie.